homeschool with toddlers at home. Hi, I'm Jess, and this is Silo and Sage. I'm so glad you're here. Today in this video, we are going to talk about how to homeschool with toddlers at home. So we've been a homeschooling family since the beginning. I have 5 kids. My oldest right now is 14 and my youngest is 5. So I have had a lot of years of homeschooling with toddlers at home. Now, it can be tricky when you have toddlers or preschoolers at home, and you kind of have to juggle the season of life that you're in. If you have an infant baby and a toddler and a preschooler, totally done that. It might look differently than if you just have one 4-year-old. But these tips are things that I have found really helpful for homeschooling with little children alongside your bigger children. Now this works even if you just have 2 kids and you have a large age gap, or you have lots of kids like I do and you have lots of kids to deal with at one time. So the first piece of advice that I have is whenever you have little kids, toddlers, preschoolers, you want to fill up their attention bucket first. So this means that maybe you spend a little bit of time doing something with them before you get started with your lessons with your older kids. You sit and you snuggle and you read them a book. You play with a game. You do a puzzle together. Whatever fills their bucket, because they want the attention. Right? If you've ever had little kids, you know that they want attention. So when you suddenly are giving all the attention to all of their siblings and not to them, they are gonna feel that and they are going to want that attention and they're going to be super distracting. So fill up their love bucket, fill up their attention bucket, and then move on and get your kids started on their lessons. Little kids love to get their hands into things. So provide lots of hands-on activities for your little kids to do during the day. So this is also going to be a way for them to learn through play, because we never did any kind of preschool outside of our home. I wanted to have lots of learning opportunities for my toddlers and my preschoolers in our house. So the kind of things that we did in our house were not like formal curriculum. I wasn't a big fan of formal preschool curriculum. So we just did a lot of learning activities that my kids could choose on their own, and I just provided them for them. So things like sensory bins or just a bucket of water with different things to practice pouring water. That is a good one. Play-Doh, different sorting activities, stacking and building, coloring and painting, playing with any kind of natural materials like sticks, rocks, shells, any of those types of things. Anything that they are just getting their hands onto an object to play with and learn and explore. Number 3, give them their own schoolwork. One thing that has been really helpful for me with my small kids, and even now with my 5-year-old who just turned 5, so he would not even be in kindergarten if he was in school, is to give him his own work to do alongside of his older brothers. Now, sometimes it literally means I print out the exact same page that my older kids are doing and he just does whatever he wants onto the page. Sometimes I give him his own little notebook that he can use when my other kids are doing their nature journals. He has his own nature journal. It really helps him feel connected and gets him into the rhythm of doing school the way we do it as a family, so that when the time comes for him to actually join in and do school on his own, it doesn't feel really foreign to him. He totally gets it and he's like, oh yeah, this is what we do here. So it also just helps them to feel like part of the big kid group. So I highly recommend, even if it just is like a coloring book. My youngest has had a math book for the last 4 years that is just a coloring book, but he is excited about it. When the kids pull out their math books, he pulls his out also. Number 4, create accessible learning spaces. So what do I even mean by that? I mean, make a space where your preschooler and toddler can safely play and access toys, learning materials, maybe even special things that are just like in your schoolroom if you have a schoolroom that are just for school time. But it's important for your little kids to have their own activities that they can do during school time. Now, if you have a separate playroom, make sure that they can access that and be safe there while you are with your older kids during school time. They don't have to be learning activities that your kids are doing. It doesn't have to be something specific to learning their ABCs or learning to count or whatever, because remember that play is learning for little children. So anything that they are doing is actually learning. Now, we don't keep a lot of toys in our schoolroom, but I have like a whole shelf of what I call a play school preschool corner. So it has lots of materials that my son can pull out and use, and we've always had some sort of learning space, kind of like a corner or one little shelf for our younger kids. So over the years, what is on that shelf has changed as our kids' ages and ability and just like their developmental stage has changed. Some of those things might be like mag formers, those little magnet toys that fit together, wooden letters and numbers, wooden blocks, lacing cards, beads that you can string on together to like sequence and like make patterns and stuff, letter matching games, musical instruments. One thing that has been really helpful is having a CD player. I bought a CD player at Goodwill, and you can use it with headphones or without, and I have little audiobooks that I have on CD and like little music CDs, and you can find those at thrift stores all the time. And they're really inexpensive, but they're super fun for small kids to use on their own. And once you teach them how to use it, like once they're maybe like 3, they can use it pretty well on their own. And they just kind of feel like it's their thing, in my experience, that they just kind of feel empowered over it. And my youngest would go and he would turn on music when he was sad, or he would turn on an audiobook when his big brothers were reading, and it's just been a really helpful tool for us. My last tip is to let them choose whether or not they want to be involved in your school time, but let them know that they are welcome. Now, if you have a toddler or a preschooler who is super destructive, you will need to set some boundaries. I have had those toddlers and preschoolers who just want to come to the table and they want to wreck everything. Now, if you have one like that, you will need to set some boundaries. Maybe you want to put them in a high chair where they're kind of contained, or a playpen, you know, like one of those pack and plays next to you, somewhere where they can be involved and be close, but be a little bit more contained. But if they are not in a destructive stage, we want them to know that we don't do school separate from life, right? Like, it isn't just that like, oh, now we do our school time and now this is the rest of our life. It's all intermingled. It all is together. Homeschooling is such a big part of our daily life. So we want, in our family, we want our little ones to grow up feeling welcomed and included, so that it isn't such a shock that someday they do school. Like, it's just part of our regular everyday life. So I want them to be immersed in this lifestyle. So that means if we're reading a read aloud book, I invite them to come and sit with us. If they don't want to, that's fine. Or if they just want to sit on the floor and color while we're reading, totally fine. But I want them to be involved. And like I said, I give them their own work. I give them their own activities if they need to. But if there's something that they can be involved, even if they're not actually, you know, retaining any of the stuff, like any of the actual like content we're talking about, they at least get to be part of the experience, because this is part of the reason why we homeschool. We want to be learning as a family. I'm not gonna like leave my kids out. I want them to be part of it. Now, there were times when my little ones were napping that maybe we would do something that was a little more intensive for my older kids. Like, if they wanted to do a science experiment that wasn't as safe for my younger kids to be around, or pull out a toy or some kind of learning material that had really tiny pieces, and I knew my little one was going to put them in their mouth. Obviously, I'm going to work around my little one's schedule and maybe do something like that during nap time, or put the little one in a high chair where they can be more contained, things like that. But I I want our homeschool to be a very inclusive family environment where everyone is part of a homeschool, not just my big school-age kids. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.